How did one man, a Corsican artillery officer, manage to conquer most of Europe and crown himself emperor? Today, we're diving into one of the most epic and chaotic periods in history, the Napoleonic Wars. This is a story of ambition, genius, and a continent at war for over a decade. To understand Napoleon, we have to go back to the French Revolution. From 1789 to 1799, France was a whirlwind of chaos. The monarchy was overthrown, the king lost his head, and a new republic was born in blood and turmoil. Amidst this instability, the French army became a path to power, and one young general, Napoleon Bonaparte, was exceptionally good at his job. Napoleon first made a name for himself with brilliant military campaigns in Italy and Egypt. His victories were legendary, and he became a national hero. In Paris, the government was weak and corrupt. Seeing his chance, Napoleon returned in 1799 and seized power in a coup d'etat. It was called the Coup of 80. Who's like that? The 30-year-old general was the most powerful man in France. By 1804, he wasn't just a general or a consul. He crowned himself emperor of the French. The old monarchies of Europe, Britain, Austria, Russia, Prussia, were terrified. They saw Napoleon as the embodiment of the revolution, a dangerous force that threatened their own power. So, they formed coalitions to stop him. Over the years, there would be 7 of these coalitions, a relentless series of alliances, all aimed at bringing down France. But for a long time, they couldn't. Napoleon was a military genius. His Grande Army seemed invincible. In 1805, at the Battle of Austerlitz, he faced the combined armies of Austria and Russia. In what is considered his masterpiece, Napoleon lured them into a trap and achieved a stunning victory. This battle cemented his reputation as the greatest commander of his age. However, Napoleon's ambition wasn't just on land. He wanted to defeat his most stubborn enemy, Great Britain. But the British Royal Navy stood in his way. That same year, 1805, at the Battle of Trafalgar, Admiral Horatio Nelson annihilated the combined French and Spanish fleets. Nelson died in the battle, but his victory ensured that Britain would rule the waves, and a French invasion of the British Isles was now impossible. Unable to invade Britain, Napoleon tried to strangle it economically with a blockade called the Continental System. This policy forbade his allies and conquered territories from trading with Britain. But this was a massive overreach and created widespread resentment. On land, however, his empire continued to grow. He marched across Europe, placing his relatives and loyal marshals on the thrones of conquered nations. From Spain to Poland, the French Empire stretched across the continent. With this conquest came the Napoleonic Code, a revolutionary legal system that swept away old feudal laws. It promoted legal equality, religious toleration, and administrative efficiency. Even today, its influence can be seen in the legal systems of many countries. But the seeds of his downfall were sown at the height of his power. In 1812, Napoleon made his most fateful decision: to invade Russia. The Tsar had defied the continental system, and Napoleon decided to make an example of him. He assembled the largest European army ever seen, the Grande Armée, with over 500,000 soldiers, and marched on Moscow. The Russians, however, refused to play by his rules. They retreated deep into their vast country, burning everything in their path. This scorched earth tactic denied Napoleon's army food and supplies. Napoleon captured Moscow, only to find it a deserted, burning city. With no one to surrender and winter approaching, he was forced to retreat. The retreat from Moscow is one of the great horror stories of military history. Starvation, freezing temperatures, and constant attacks from Russian partisans decimated the Grande Armée of the more than 500,000 men who invaded. Fewer than 100,000 made it back. It was a catastrophe from which Napoleon would never fully recover. Sensing his weakness, the other European powers pounced. In 1813, a massive coalition of Russian, Prussian, Austrian, and Swedish forces faced Napoleon at the Battle of Leipzig, also known as the Battle of Nations. It was a colossal, bloody conflict. Outnumbered and outmaneuvered, Napoleon suffered his first major defeat on European soil. The end was now near. The Allies invaded France, and in 1814, Paris fell. Napoleon was forced to abdicate and was exiled to the tiny island of Elba in the Mediterranean. The old French monarchy was restored. It seemed the Napoleonic era was over. But Napoleon had one last act. In less than a year, he escaped from Elba, landed in France, and rallied the people and the army to his side. Tekin fled, and Napoleon was back in power. This period is known as the 100 Days. Europe was stunned. The Allies quickly reassembled their armies to face him one last time. The final showdown came on June 18, 1815, near a small Belgian village called Waterloo. Napoleon faced a British-led Allied army under the Duke of Wellington, with the Prussians under Marshal Blucher marching to join them. The battle was a close-run thing. 4 hours. French forces relentlessly attacked Wellington's lines, but the British held on. Just barely. As the day was turning, the Prussians arrived and smashed into Napoleon's flank. The French army collapsed. Napoleon's last gamble had failed. This time, the Allies took no chances. Napoleon was exiled to St. Helena, a remote, windswept rock in the middle of the South Atlantic Ocean. He would spend the last 6 years of his life there, a prisoner, before dying in 1821. The Napoleonic Wars were over, but their legacy was immense. The Congress of Vienna redrew the map of Europe, trying to create a balance of power to prevent another such conflict. But the ideas Napoleon had spread nationalism, legal reform, and the very concept that a man of talent could rise to the top could not be erased. He reshaped warfare, politics, and national identity across the continent, leaving a mark on history that is still debated and studied to this day. A true giant of history, whose shadow looms large even 2 centuries later. What do you think was Napoleon's greatest strength or his biggest mistake? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the past, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more history videos. See you next time.